The Crusades, a word synonymous with religious zeal, bloody battles and epic journeys. But the Crusades were far more than just a series of holy wars. They were a collision of worlds, a clash of ambitions, and a stage for some of the most dramatic power struggles in medieval history. But behind the image of knights in shining armor lies a more complex story. It's a tale woven with ambition, fear, and the ever-shifting sands of loyalty. It's a story of shifting alliances, bitter betrayals, and unexpected cultural exchanges. Kings and emperors, popes and sultans all played their parts in a high-stakes game where trust was rare and treachery was never far away. Imagine a world where East meets West, where Christian nations forge uneasy partnerships with their Muslim counterparts only to turn on each other in a heartbeat. Trade routes flourished, ideas crossed borders and cultures mingled, even as swords clashed and cities burned. That's the world of the Crusades, a world where the fate of empires hung in the balance. Every alliance was a gamble, every battle a turning point, and every victory or defeat could reshape the map of the known world. At the heart of this tumultuous period stands the Byzantine Empire, the eastern bastion of Christendom. Its walls had withstood countless sieges, its people had endured centuries of conflict. For centuries this mighty empire had stood as a bulwark against the forces of Islam, its capital, Constantinople, a beacon of civilization and learning. The city's libraries, churches and palaces were the envy of the world, and its scholars preserved the wisdom of ages past. But by the late 11th century, the Byzantine Empire was in a precarious position. Its borders were shrinking, its enemies growing bolder, and its people living in constant fear of invasion. Beset by enemies from all sides, the empire was in desperate need of allies. The emperor faced impossible choices, knowing that every decision could mean survival or ruin, and so, they turned to the West for help, a decision that would have profound consequences for both Byzantium and the course of Western civilization. This fateful alliance would set in motion a chain of events that would echo through history, shaping the destinies of nations for centuries to come. Imagine a vast empire stretching from the rugged mountains of the Balkans, across the sparkling waters of the Aegean, all the way to the sun-baked deserts of the Middle East. This was a land of immense diversity, where ancient traditions met new ideas, and where the fate of empires was decided. The Byzantine Empire was a true melting pot of cultures and languages, bustling with merchants, scholars and travelers from every corner of the known world. All were united, at least in theory, under the banner of Orthodox Christianity, which shaped daily life and imperial identity. At the dawn of the Crusades, Constantinople stood as a beacon of civilization, its golden domes and mighty walls a testament to centuries of glory and resilience. Yet beneath this grandeur, the empire was under siege. Once so powerful, the Byzantines now faced grave threats on multiple fronts, their borders shrinking and their confidence shaken. In the east, the Seljuk Turks, a fierce nomadic people who had recently embraced Islam, were steadily encroaching on Byzantine territory. Their swift cavalry and relentless raids struck fear into the heart of Anatolia. The Seljuks were a formidable force, their armies renowned for their discipline, mobility, and deadly archers on horseback. They brought new tactics and a relentless drive for conquest. Meanwhile, the Byzantine army, weakened by years of internal strife, political intrigue, and chronic neglect, was ill-prepared to face this new and dynamic threat. Morale was low, and resources were stretched thin. Defeat followed defeat. Towns and villages that once fed the empire now lay in ruins, and soon, the Seljuk Turks had overrun much of Anatolia, the breadbasket and heartland of the Byzantine world. Meanwhile, in the West, Catholic Europe, though Christian in name, posed its own set of challenges. The Byzantines could not count on their fellow Christians for support. For centuries, the Byzantines and Western Europeans had been divided by deep religious and cultural differences, each side viewing the other with suspicion and mistrust. The Great Schism of 1054, which had formally split the Christian Church into Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic branches, had only deepened these wounds, making unity in the face of danger seem almost impossible. The year is 1095. Europe stands at a crossroads, its kingdoms divided by faith, ambition, and centuries of rivalry. Yet far to the east, a crisis is brewing that will soon draw them all together in a way no one could have foreseen. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, a shrewd and ambitious ruler, sits on the throne of Byzantium. His eyes betray the weight of 1,000 worries, for he rules an empire beset on all sides by enemies and intrigue. His empire is crumbling, his armies depleted, his treasury empty. Once mighty fortresses now lie in ruins, and the people grow restless as famine and fear spread through the land. The Seljuk Turks are at his doorstep, their armies poised to strike at the very heart of the empire, Constantinople. Every day the threat grows more dire and the city's defenders are stretched to their limits. Alexios knows that he cannot defeat the Seljuks alone. He needs help, and he needs it fast. The fate of Byzantium, and perhaps all of Christendom, hangs in the balance. His gaze turns west, to the Catholic kingdoms of Europe. It's a desperate gamble, one fraught with uncertainty and risk. But with no other options, Alexios must take a chance. Alexios is acutely aware of the religious and cultural differences that separate Byzantium from the West. The scars of the Great Schism are still fresh, and mistrust runs deep between the two branches of Christianity. He knows that the Western Knights are a rough and unruly lot, motivated as much by greed and ambition as by religious zeal. Their reputation for violence and unpredictability precedes them, and Alexios wonders if he can truly trust them. But he also knows that they are fierce warriors, more than capable of matching the Seljuk Turks in battle. Their courage and martial skill could tip the scales in Byzantium's favor, if only he can persuade them to come. So Alexios swallows his pride and sends an embassy to Pope Urban II, the spiritual leader of Western Christendom. It is a bold move, one that will set in motion events that will change the world forever. His message is simple: help us fight the infidels in the Holy Land, and we will help you heal the rift between East and West. With hope and trepidation, Alexios waits for an answer, knowing that the future of his empire, and perhaps all of Europe, depends on what happens next. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, Pope Urban II receives Alexios's plea for help. He sees an opportunity not just to aid a fellow Christian ruler but to unite Christendom under his banner and potentially reclaim the Holy Land, which had been under Muslim control for centuries. In 1095, Pope Urban II convenes the Council of Clermont, a gathering of church officials and nobles in southern France. His speech is a masterpiece of religious rhetoric. He paints a vivid picture of the suffering of Christians in the East at the hands of the Seljuk Turks, deliberately exaggerating the atrocities to stir up the passions of his audience. He calls on them to lay down their arms and embrace the cause of Christendom, to embark on a holy pilgrimage to liberate the Holy Land from the clutches of the infidels. He promises them forgiveness of their sins, eternal glory in the afterlife, and perhaps most importantly, riches and land in the East. The response to Urban's call to arms is honestly just overwhelming. Tens of thousands of people from all walks of life, knights, peasants, merchants, and priests, heed the Pope's call and take up the cross, vowing to liberate the Holy Land. This is the beginning of the First Crusade. The Crusaders, as they come to be known, are a mixed bag. Some are driven by genuine religious fervor, eager to atone for their sins and secure their place in heaven. Others are motivated by more worldly concerns, the promise of land, riches, or simply an escape from their dreary lives in Europe. The First Crusade is a testament to both the power of religious belief and the allure of adventure and wealth. However, the alliance between the Byzantines and the Crusaders is fraught with suspicion and mistrust from the outset. The Byzantines, with their sophisticated courtly manners and ancient traditions, view the Western Knights as barbaric and uncouth. The fragile alliance between the Byzantines and the Crusaders completely unravels during the Fourth Crusade. In 1204, the Crusaders, instead of reaching the Holy Land, are diverted to Constantinople. Driven by greed and manipulated by Venetian interests, they lay siege to the city, the heart of Christendom. The sack of Constantinople is a pivotal moment in medieval history. For 3 days, the Crusaders unleash a reign of terror upon the city. They loot and pillage its treasures, desecrate its churches, and massacre its citizens. The magnificent Hagia Sophia, once the grandest church in Christendom, is defiled and plundered. The sack of Constantinople is not just a material loss, it's a spiritual and cultural catastrophe. It shatters the image of Christian unity and leaves a legacy of bitterness and resentment between East and West. The Byzantine Empire, though severely weakened, survives the Crusader sack of Constantinople. They regain control of their iconic capital city in 1261, but never fully recover from the blow. The sack of 1204 marks a turning point in Byzantine history, leaving the empire vulnerable to the rising power of the Ottoman Turks. The relationship between the Byzantines and the West is irrevocably damaged. The Crusades, initially intended to support the Byzantine Empire, ultimately contribute to its decline. The sack of Constantinople solidifies the chasm between Eastern and Western Christianity, fostering centuries of mistrust and hindering any future attempts at reunification. Despite the setbacks and betrayals, the Byzantine Empire demonstrates remarkable resilience. They hold on for another 2.5 centuries, a testament to their enduring spirit and cultural ingenuity. During this time, Byzantine art, literature, and scholarship continue to flourish, preserving ancient knowledge and influencing the Italian Renaissance. However, the empire, weakened and fragmented, faces relentless pressure from the rising Ottoman Turks. The Ottomans, embracing Islam, gradually chip away at Byzantine territories, finally capturing Constantinople in 1453. The fall of Constantinople marks the end of the Byzantine Empire, but its legacy lives on. The Crusades represent a complex and controversial period in history. They were a clash of civilizations, a melting pot of faiths and cultures, and a catalyst for both destruction and renewal. For the Byzantine Empire, the Crusades were a double-edged sword, offering both opportunities and devastating consequences. They brought much-needed military assistance in times of crisis, but ultimately contributed to the empire's weakening and eventual downfall. The Crusades left an indelible mark on the course of history, shaping the relationship between East and West for centuries to come. But one question remains: what do you believe was the most significant impact of the Crusades on the Byzantine Empire?